Hey everyone, welcome to Project Metal Music's YouTube channel with your host Daniel, and we are here with Foxy The Enthusiast. Welcome, Foxy.
Thank you, Metal. Good evening to you. It's good evening, UK evening time hours. Thank you most generously and kindly sincerely for having me on your podcast panel.
Yeah, pleasure. So, for those who don't know, who are you and what you do?
Oh, me. In content-wise, what I do within the content, however, it's a mixed variety, if there's any way to tellingly express it on the whole. Well, originally, how my content started out, you're going back well over 10 years ago now. I was just into the railways. It was mostly just railway content that I did a long time ago. Whether it was watching a train at a railway station, a video on board a train, that sort of thing, or and then later on it expanded to bus content. And it was for quite a long time, it was predominantly bus and train content. And I did sometimes do bits of gaming, computer game content from time to time, but I was only a youngster at the time, as one could imagine. Well, probably won't be surprised given what I've looked like age-wise, but that's another story. So, um, so yes, it's a mixed variety, starting off mainly just with the train stuff, then it moved on to the bus stuff, and then gaming content, and also after gaming content, also in between, things like exploring content, exploring certain places, like walking about a village, or whether it's just to give an example, not saying reality, city, or doing or certain family wise content, pending consent with family. I could use the video and get it uploaded, that sort of thing. That's what it's been predominantly based upon. But later, and of course, more recently, in the last year or so, I expanded to live streaming content. I haven't done gaming content for a while, because I'm not a big computer games person. I was as a little boy, and partially as a teenager, before the entry point of my youth, but otherwise nowadays, I still do railway content, but I don't do it as much as I used to. I still do bus content, pretty much to a similar extent, but only when time allows and when there are no time constraints in personal life, that is. Because, as you get older, time constraints happen, which can curtail hobbies and that sort of thing. But the thing that happened in the last 4 years, classic car content and Steam Rally event tending content, what have you, and the occasional museum content, that happened even before 4 years ago. It's happened. I've done it before, but I never always took videos of it until generally fairly recently, or maybe about 6 years ago. I think I took to sometimes doing museum content, something like that. I never featured museum content at first. It only came within some years down the line after I took to the skies with YouTubing. If it answers all those questions, well, certainly your question.
Yeah, cool. So, who actually got you into sort of like getting into sort of like trains?
It's an interest I've had for a long time. What got me into trains is a fantastic question. You're going back around about 20 years ago, back in the day when I was a little toddler. And it was some years before my parents separated and divorced. Whenever my parents needed some quiet time, they used to put Thomas the Tank Engine on for me on the television, whether it's on a DVD or what we also still had at the time, VHS sets, or if it was just aired on television, they used to put some Thomas the Tank Engine on for me. And I couldn't stop watching it. The first time I could recall ever watching Thomas the Tank Engine, I was hooked on it from day one. I was hooked on watching Thomas the Tank Engine, and my interest in trains came from day one from that point. It was never a story I'd opened up before, but it's the first time I've ever opened up the story on what got me into trains.
Cool. Mind you, I think Thomas the Tank Engine has influenced a lot of people over the years, especially from like the 70s onwards with the books.
it was the 1940s it first started, and throughout the 50s and 60s it was published.
Yeah.
Written by the late Reverend Wilbert Awdry.
Cool.
I mean, a true legend who's really influenced and touched the lives of not only children, but several millions of families, not just the United Kingdom, but the world, with his Thomas the Tank Engine stories. There's one particular Thomas the Tank Engine story I like, because I've read the original Railway series as well in Reverend Wilbert Awdry form, which is the Thomas Comes to Breakfast. Oh, Thomas the Tank Engine has worked as a branch line for many years. Oh, you know just where to stop, Thomas, laughed his driver. You could almost manage it without me. Wonderful story.
Yeah, cool. So that went on. So your love of trains went on to sort of like the love of buses. How did you get into sort of like liking buses?
The interest in buses came, well, what interested me most was seeing all the different shapes and sizes of the buses. But also what interested me most of all was where they could take you. You can get on board, sit on a seat, you just look out the window and whatever sights you see, and just really just generally where it takes oneself to, what have you. And especially when it comes to the necessitating needs, when one needs to take it, that sort of thing. So I think what got me into it was when either it was my family or if certain friends or a minder, childminder, took whether it was me or my brother and my younger brother and I on a bus, or if my grandparents took me on the bus, because I used to take to the skies with bus trips quite a lot whenever I used to see my grandparents when they lived in the Brighton and Hove region at the time, before they moved to the Isle of Wight, if this by all means makes sense at all. So I think it was being introduced to bus riding through family, friends and family relatives. And I think that was what got me also into that in a way. And really just, I think it's to make it a more constructive sense to share, it was the experiential moments through riding on the buses, which was what really got me into buses on the hill, if this makes sense.
Yeah, cool. Yeah. We've got a comment from Lisa Boo, and she asks, where she says, I enjoyed the castle content, Foxy.
Thank you, Lisa. Thank you.
Yeah. Let me see. Trains, Ozzy said, trains are fascinating for sure.
I couldn't agree with that more.
And yes, my children, excuse me, my children loved Thomas the Tank Engine as kids.
Little did I realise your two daughters love Thomas the Tank Engine, Ossie, Queen Jess. Little did I realise that.
Yeah. So, excuse me, I've got a bit of a cold, so bear with me. So from there, from the buses, you're going over to sort of like the trucks and the cars and the automotive car show, automotive shows. Who sort of like got you into doing that? Yeah, to actually.
This is when it's very fascinating. Well, I don't know if it's going to be a fascinating answer, but it's certainly an interesting one. And it particularly stands out to me personally, and it's on a more personal side. A few years ago, in 2021, was when my interest in classic cars, historic commercials, and steam rallies, where it features the enchantment of steam traction engines, steam rollers, anything steam powered, and like vintage fairground organs, funfair equipment, and sometimes the odd miniature railway where they have the steam rally events I'm known to go to, or an organ room in one particular one where you can have not just one but quite a good few. What got me into that was because which was from 2021 onwards, because shortly before I got into classic cars, historic commercials, steam rallies, steam powered vehiculars and musical fairground organs, etc., was I met somebody in 2021 who is now, I'm very happy to say, Metal, he's my best friend, David Scott. I met him right at the end of COVID lockdown at Worthing Bus Rally 2021, that is, which is generally an annually held bus rally. I met him at what was it. This might get a bit emotionally investing. At what was a very critically low point in my life, it all came to me. It was David, this man that got me into going to these events. It was what he got me into going, and it's personal to me, the effect it's had. Really, it's personal. And there's only one I cannot thank anybody other than David Scott for getting me into those events and all that. Really, I can't thank him enough for it.
Cool, cool, cool. So, out of all the sort of like the classic vintage and other sort of like vehicles that you've been to, that you've got an interest in, what is your sort of like favorite sort of like mode of transport?
I'd have to say probably the public transportations of trains and buses are my favourite mode of transport. But I have got a favourite classic car,
Cool, cool, cool. What type of car?
an Austin. Austin and
Right.
Austins are my favourites.
Cool, cool. Yeah, I do like Austins.
So do
Um,
I.
I was at back in 2018. I was up at the car garage up in just behind Beamish Open Air Museum, where they had it open day, and Aston Martin had pretty much every single car that was ever produced from 1910 onwards. And
Mate,
well, put it this way, you're talking £100 million just in the Aston Martins.
that's a very significant investment. Well, it would not surprise me if the investments in classic cars are effectively huge.
Yeah, it is. It is. It's like I know the classic cars, even some of the mundane cars, such as like the Ford Escort from the 80s, 70s, and 80s. I know sort of like the Wolseleys. I know the Austin 6.7s and 8s are sort of like really getting expensive uh, to buy
Mm,
because of like say Bangers and Cash, the TV show, and other TV shows that going on, like promoting like sort of like if you buy this seed, you get rid of a 30-40 grand if it's in mint condition.
I couldn't. I mean, this would not surprise me one little bit, and I sincerely couldn't agree with your point more strongly enough, Metal, on that. You really do share a truthfully evident point there.
Yeah, yeah. Over the years, I've been to well, basically it's ever since the 90s, really, because I was working in the motor industry when I left school, and my interest in cars was stoked by when I left school and started being a motor vehicle spray painter, restoring classic cars and stuff like that. Even run of the mill sort of like what I call rot boxes, because at the time the steel in the bodyworks were absolutely shockingly bad. They were just like there weren't stuff from the 70s and the 80s and going into the 90s were just like it was just it was just it's like once every couple of months we had, or once every year we had like the same vehicle coming in and getting it like the bottom half of the cars being repaired because it was all rotten, rusted out.
Mm. It's a good thing the restoration work happened in that sense.
Yeah.
No, I mean, any classic car that's rusting, restoration is necessary. If you let it rust too much, it could go to scrap.
Yeah. Yeah. It's like with, I know there's a lot of people back in the 70s and 80s, because I was talking to them and they said that basically I was actually kicking myself because I had, they were saying I had like the Mark 1 Escorts, the Lotus Escorts, the Mexico's Escorts. They had these hot hatches from the day, and basically they sort of like wrote them off, not thinking about it until like later on they said, "Oh my God, if I kept all the cars that I had over the years, over the decades, I would have been a millionaire." Because in the last 10, possibly 15 years, the there's been such a sort of like uptake in buying, investing money into classic cars.
No, this would not surprise me, especially when their value is quite high and all that.
Yeah. Like I said, some of the like the Ford Mark 1, like the first series of Escorts and the second series of Escorts, somebody said they would go for 25-30 grand a few years ago.
It's an asking price, but it wouldn't surprise me. This wouldn't surprise me, an asking price like that for a classic.
Yeah.
It can depend on its make, what have you. Is there anything else you like?
Yeah, Blacksmith has just said, this is pretty cool, which I've actually heard about. In the late 1960s, the eldest son put a 2.5 litre Daimler V8 in a Triumph TR3. Oh,
What an impressive thing to happen, Blacksmith, and a truly incredibly impressive thing.
Mind you, I have literally heard about people putting like Jaguar engines in small cars, like V8s, stuff like that, into even V12s, into even into minis, like the original minis.
Yes, oh yes, the Mini Cooper. No, I've seen many Mini Coopers.
Yeah.
No, I mean, there's a very good event. I mean, I missed it this year because of the Norton Autumn Rally, which is an annually held steam rally that happens once towards the end of the spring, nearly summer, and they have another one shortly before the autumn. But there's a mini car show that I, despite missing it this year, had been attending annually since 2022. And they feature a wide range of minis, from the classic Mini Coopers, or the original classic Mini Coopers, as you mentioned, to other minis from like 1990s, 2000s, modern day.
Yeah. I love the classic minis, but
they are very small.
Yeah, and but I did put up a video beginning of the year where at a car basically at an open day for a musician, and somebody turned around and said, "That is somebody," because somebody in the car club that I'm sort of like, I'm attached to, had a brand new Mini Cooper. What was it? The Works car. He actually got it from the Mini Works. It was actually souped up and everything from the Mini car, from the Mini's workshop. And there's basically been people turn around and says, "Oh yeah, OIW whatever reg. That is not a mini. Why are you putting that up? It's absolute garbage. That's not a mini.
Wow. I mean, someone speak that out about minis. Wow, he obviously was opinionated about it.
Yeah, I know. There's like a lot of people who actually don't like the new minis, but the way I was brought up was, if you haven't got nothing good to say, don't say anything at all.
Hmm. I mean, there's not a lot I can always say on certain modern day cars, but what I wouldn't go is I generally wouldn't go as far as to say something badly insulting.
Yeah, yeah. Me personally, I would say, oh, I don't like that car. It's not my thing.
Yeah, no, I'm more or less like that, really. It's not my sort of thing. I would say it's not my sort of thing either. For a modern day make of car, anything or whatever modern day thing that does not appeal to my interest.
Yeah. So, what are you doing on your channel with with the transport?
Normally showing what it's like, where it's videography content wise. But when it comes to the event attending, however, or going to say, for example, or the occasional railway attending, whether it's a miniature steam railway, etc., taking a video to namely promotional reasons to promote it not just for the domestically but worldwide, so that it could potentially make those sorts of places a point of interest. Even if
So,
it's only something that's once annually held, make it a point of interest, a point of annually held interest of events to happen, or
yeah,
potentially increase its popularity, what have you. 'Cause if we can increase the popularity of steam rallies, historic commercial vehicle runs, and classic car events and car shows, whether it's where it shows a mixed variety of cars from several different decades of makes, if we could do that, or anyone could do that, this could really transform and turn around the popularity and increase the popularity of these events to the point where this could really captivate not only interest but captivate a decent amount of much needed popularity, because many of those kinds of events sometimes don't always get the publicity needed. So if we can do that, that can increase the publicity and really not just the publicity and the popularity, but make it appealing to people worldwide to go to, what have you, and
yeah,
prove that there is a pastime out there for those who may think otherwise.
yeah, yeah. That's the thing with what I do as well, is to showcase the venues that hold these like classic car shows or vintage rallies and stuff like that. Is to get like people sort of like get people interested. If say for instance, if they are coming to, say if they come from say the US, and they're coming to the UK for a week or 2 weeks or something, and in the middle of the height of the seasons, they can actually get to some of the car shows,
Oh
and
yes, absolutely.
so that's what basically what I do as well. So yeah, cool. So right. Blacksmith, as you said, he got the V8 Jaguar. It was one they had on their test bench. The
Ooh.
V8.
Is
Cool.
this in referral to your relative you were talking about a moment ago, Blacksmith, if you don't mind me
Yeah,
asking?
yeah, it was. Yeah, he sold it back in the 60s.
Yeah. Son or oh, actually, Blacksmith got married in the 70s. I think he had his son in the 70s, but did you mean brother-in-law, Blacksmith, or son? I mean, do let us know otherwise.
Yeah. So yeah, let's know the Blacksmith. Um, where is it? I did see the um Harriet. Hey, Harriet.
Hello,
Um,
she's my
she's
mod.
Yeah,
It's one of my mods.
yeah, cool. She says, I like the Daphne and Nixie videos too.
Daphne and Nixie, they're my cats, just to let you know.
Cool, cool.
Daphne is a gingerish white partially Maine Coon, and Nixie is a dark grey with with a white patch and a little bit of white on her front paws, and very petite and lean, Russian blue, and we also believe she might have or might be partially Korat as well. Two cats. They're both only 4 years of age. We got them back in 2021,
Cool.
and honestly, they're just the most amazing pets anyone could have possessive ownership of. All pets, the loyalty your pets show to their humans, and the epitomized distinction of a person's love for their towards their pets.
Yeah,
It's a greatly phenomenal thing.
yeah, cool,
And
cool.
Daphne is I should thank Daphne for getting me for leading me to David, because it was the Daphne videos which was how I found out about David, because
Cool,
Daphne's been featured on my channel since she was a kitten,
cool,
and
cool.
David's known Daphne since kitten, and it was, it was within weeks after I first heard from David was when we met.
Cool. Blacksmith, as you said, he was the son of the boss
Oh,
where I
son of
did
the
my
boss.
time,
Oh,
my
son of
sort of
the
like.
boss. Oh, sorry, Blacksmith, my mistake. Thank you for your correction. Thank you.
Cool. Uh, so, um, so I know you mentioned that you like sort of like theatre. So could you tell us a little bit about what you like about theatre?
Basically, it's the show that can be put on, how well the performance goes. Nothing can beat a theatrical performance, like say on live television, for example. Seeing it in the theatre, in the rows of seats, and with other people which you could potentially socialize and connect with. Nothing could beat those immersive experiential moments. I mean, I haven't been to a theatre in almost 10 years now. Last time I saw a theatrical performance on theatre, on the stage, that is, stage side of circumstances, was in 2016. But I'm really hoping to go again next year to see a theatrical performance, because I've not done it for so long, but I do very much like theatre, yes.
Cool, cool.
Liked it since
Which
I was a boy.
cool. Which theatre show would you go? Would you go and see if you had the chance?
If they could do it again in the Brighton Theatre, I would love to see Happy Days, and if I could, Paddington. I think they have one up in London, and I would certainly next year, if I get the chance, see Paddington, because I love Paddington Bear.
Yeah,
I've
yeah,
seen all the movies, so
yeah,
I love Paddington.
yeah. Same here. Ever since the 70s for me. I used to watch the animated cartoon series
I
back
never got
in.
to see that.
Yeah, I think you might find it on YouTube or somewhere like that.
I would think so, yes.
Yeah. So yeah, you also mentioned you sort of like the organ music, especially from like the sort of like the fairground music. Could you tell us a little bit about that?
There's something extremely uplifting about fairground organ music. And one thing I cannot help but do is dance to it. Especially when I first heard an organ and saw one for the first time. Given my circumstances at the time when I first heard it, it's just not only does it uplift, it's generally uplifting when you hear it, but it lifts the captivated emotion of weight of your spirits when you hear it. And also, something like when you hear it, or well, only I can speak for myself from my own personal experiences, it just gives you it really gives me a good dance. and I practiced. It helped me practice dancing when I heard the organ music. But the bigger story, however, was what going to these events and things, steam rallies, where you'd see a fairground organ. You normally only see them at a steam rally or a certain fun fair, what have you. It's or in an organ museum. Not that I've ever been to an organ museum, but I have been told that otherwise through newfound friends of mine who are very, very huge organ enthusiasts. That is, people like Matt Lyons, Tommy Gardiner, and his father Nigel, or Ian Postlethwaite, Nathan Lawson, those kinds of people. Oh, they are. Or Fairley, another friend of mine. They are huge. They are big on fairground organs, like big, a huge reverence they've got towards it, like just a profoundly large reverence towards it, if there's any way to tellingly express. But it's the great uplifting spirit. Nothing, in my opinion, could ever completely beat the uplifting spirit and the musical chimes and sounds that come out of these fairground organs. It's extremely. There's a great captivation to it when hearing it. So, and when you're listening to them, when they're playing out in action, and I think they're one of the greatest things that have ever existed. Fairground organs, ever since I got used to listening and dancing to them.
Cool. Yeah. We've got a couple of people saying. Let me see who. Yeah, Foxy, Harriet just said, do you know Paddington has been turned into a musical and is playing in London now?
I did know that, yes.
Yeah, and she said later on, I guess he knows about the Paddington musical. Sorry, Ellen, Foxy.
Oh, you needn't worry, Harriet, you needn't worry.
Yeah, there's a lot of people saying they've got a lot of love for Paddington and the Queen's sort of like interaction a few years back. Ozzy says, I love Paddington.
So do I. So do I.
So going on to sort of like going out to sort of like going to other sort of like seeing other sort of musical genres, which one would you sort of like, I really like to listen to, go to a live show of whatever genre it is, whether it be rock, whether it be jazz or blues or whatever it is?
It would far more than likely be classical.
Yeah.
I haven't been to a classical concert for years now, but I'd love to see one again in the future. I mean, it's going to happen eventually. I can't just not go for a long time, because I'd be missing out on an interest I very much like. But it's more than likely, in answer to your question, Metal, it would be classical musical show. Nothing, in my opinion, can beat classical music. I love classical music, especially if it's Mozart.
Yeah. Is Mozart your favorite composer?
One of them, yes. He
Yeah.
was a musical composer my late grandfather frequently listened to.
Cool.
If you were over in my grandparents' house when my late grandfather was alive, you'd be surrounded by the sound of classical Mozart musical pieces. You'd be surrounded by it. And it was just so greatly soothing listening to it. It's greatly soothing, in my personal opinion, listening to Mozart.
Yeah. Purple Evelyn said, the Nutcracker is a must.
That's Dawn Marie, by the way. It's just at Purple Velvet. It's just with the at, they hide the full-blown username.
It's annoying when some channels change the name, some other channels you can see where the actual thing. It's annoying. naughty YouTube.
Mm.
Um, so we're going to be starting to wrap things up. Yeah, because
Are
I'm
we
starting.
wrapping things up?
Yeah, I'm starting
Oh,
to. Excuse me. I'm starting to like. Yeah, my throat and chest is really starting to hurt now with
oh,
all this. So if you've got any questions for Foxy, please let us know. We're going to be starting to wrap things up. Um, right. Pamela Garza has said, I have never heard a found ground organ in person. The closest I've come is the uh, recordings played out on a carousel.
if you hear them in person, Pamela, it's unforgettable. It's completely unforgettable if you hear them in person, and seeing them in person. It's a real. Not only is it both a real sight, but it's something completely unforgettable.
Yeah, it
I
is.
never in my lifetime did I ever think I would see something like that until I got introduced to the Steam Rally events.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. It can be. Yeah, the organs, fairground organs, can be absolutely brilliant. With
Oh, I
like,
couldn't agree with you more.
um, Lord Jim Dandy has just said, "Foxy, hello. What is your favorite musical?"
Oh, that's a very good question. Favorite musical? There's a good musical movie that I very much like, Lord Jim, Grease. I'm sure you've heard of the musical movie Grease. You know, Grease is the word, Grease is the word. I solve my problems and I see the light. That's quite a good musical,
Cool.
movie wise, but theatrical wise, that's more complicated.
Yeah, yeah, it is. It is. Um, right, yeah, what's coming up on your channel? What's coming up on what's going to happen in the next week or so?
If I can, in the next week or so, get some there's certain content of mine that still needs to get uploaded regarding showing certain photographed pictures of past events I've gone to over the course of this year. And also there's certain videography footage which I fortunately got on a memory stick that will I'll get into the folder and get uploaded onto my content. Because if I get it on the folder now, it would just mess up the memory and use it all up. And that really wouldn't work too well otherwise.
Yeah,
But there was
yeah,
something I was going to share regarding what event attending has meant to me personally.
yeah, yeah,
It really has, it helped me get through what was and overcome a critically low point in my life. Having dealt the previous year, um, the previous year before I got into the event attending, only started slowly in 2021, but more came into fruition in 2022. You know, it was, it really served, it really, little did I expect or think it would ever happen, but it really helped me overcome, the low point. Because when the critically low point was going on, I was basically just a shell of my former self. When I first met David, I had very few good days and more bad days, if anything, than good days. But it was after the first time I went to what you call Tinkers Park Rally in August of 2021. I mean, it was after the event was over, I decided I was going to go again. And hear this, I've been going annually since 2021. And it was shortly, and then after the Tinkers Park Rally was over, I checked the website David sent me a link to, which showed certain links. I read it, and then I was like, okay, right now that's what I've got to do. And slowly but surely, it did not happen overnight, but slowly but surely, I steadily began to heal from the troubles, emotionally heal, only steadily. And since then, I've hardly been without the event attending. what have you. You know, from what I was
Cool.
dealing with, it was a long time before I met David. So, because, you know, you're going back to what, 2019 now. When I was 18 years of age, I'd left, I'd already quite a few years had left school and I'd left college and I was ready to get into the world of work. But I wasn't, however, the caveat was I wasn't sure where I wanted to go. So my parents, my parents, found this internship course, and we knew nothing about it. But then we read about it and saw what it entailed. And when we heard that it was going to have a job opportunity at the end, I was like, "That's a brilliant idea! I mean, who could go wrong with that?" And so I enrolled. I enrolled in the course, jumped at the chance of the internship. It took about a couple of months or so before the internship placement started because of what I was doing it for. I was doing it for a bus company. And so it started. And I cannot tell you, Metal, how on top of the world I felt when I started it. I was like, I'm getting somewhere. If it turns into a job opportunity at the end, I'm starting out in my career, which is what every 18-year-old wants, if you understand my point to my story,
Cool.
you know, and as every 18-year-old would want. But here comes the unfortunate news. A few months as I was into the internship course, sad memories struck. On the 18th of February of 2020, after a very long time of poor health, but what exacerbated the poor health was I really think it was a 3-year battle with thrombocythemia, but he was not diagnosed until 19 months before he died. My late grandfather Edmund passed away on that day due to complications of thrombocythemia, only aged 73 when he died. He would have been 74 that October because he was born on the 17th of October of 1946 and passed away on the 18th of February 2020 at the age of 73. So he missed his 74th by nearly 8 months. And that day, oh my word, it devastated the family. It certainly greatly devastated me and myself and all of my family. And it had a tremendously profound emotional effect on my grandmother, as you could imagine, who's still alive over 5 years later, as of 2025, almost 2026. And due to the great sadness, you know, and the devastation of the loss, I did actually lose motivation to do the internship course. And inevitably, it was going to take months to overcome the loss of my late grandfather. So I didn't have a lot of motivation to do so many days to do the internship and other hobbies that I was generally interested in at the time that I've still more or less got, even to this day, even if I've done it in reduced form, you know. I would, you know, and it was from that day I had I really had many good and bad, had more bad days than good days, and I really had a lot of down moments due to the devastation and how I felt about my grandfather's death. And so, yeah, that was a very sad thing. And then we had my grandfather's funeral. But just after my grandfather's funeral, we then had COVID, didn't we? In COVID lockdown, which actually it mothballed. Initially, it just mothballed the internship courses because you'd be very shocked to hear, you know, unlike, you know, technology, where say if you couldn't do something in person, you could finish something off with the technology. Unfortunately, I did not have that advantage with or privilege with the internship course. Whereas if I'd done a course where, for example, you know, okay, you can't do it in your class or with socialized peers, got to do it online, I would have just completed it online, absolutely no trouble, and wouldn't have been adverse to it. But with the internship course, it could not be done online, unfortunately. It was a complete hands-on, experience-based course. So it was mothballed. But when you were grieving, and if you're grieving, it's not very helpful, especially for a then 18, nearly 19-year-old at the time. So yeah, no, that was a bit of a disaster. And it took, and hear this, it was 7 months before the internship course resumed. 7 months, but then it wasn't with the bus company, because I did it for a bus company for the first 3.5 to 4 months until it got mothballed. So then, so from about October of 2020, and then we had a circuit breaker in November of that year for about a month or so. I did it in an independent retail shop in the internship course. But then with the circuit breaker, it meant I couldn't do it again. And then we came to December, but here comes a much more unfortunate story. For only 2 weeks, until the 17th of December of that year, I did an internship course placement, but obviously I didn't do very many days, namely out of safety with COVID at the time, but also due to the grief, because I had prolonged grief. Because the COVID mess, it didn't help with the grief, unfortunately. But but don't get me wrong, it's needless to say I didn't take it seriously. I did. I took it dead seriously. But the only thing that annoyed me regarding COVID at the time was people who did not take it seriously. That was what actually really annoyed me more than anything. So I took it dead seriously, despite the grief I was gripped and hit with. So yeah, I didn't do very many internship placement days, but unknowingly and unbeknownst to my knowledge, little did I know, despite the fact that we had just about had a vaccination at this point, when it was all over the news coverage, the 17th of December of that year was the last day of the internship course. And then we had months long of lockdown, despite the fact that we had a vaccination and that many were getting the shots, and a steady process of reduced mortality from the COVID when it was most lethal at the time. By the time lockdown was over, or steadily over, it put the final nail in the coffin for the course, which meant that was it. It was done. It was gone and done in due to the COVID impact. I mean, oh mate, I mean, Jesus. I mean, don't get me wrong, Metal. I mean, I'm a grown man. And normally, can I tell you something? Normally, if I did anything, whether it's an internship course or took up something and say didn't succeed at something, whether it was through no control of my own, or if it didn't work out for me personally, or if my parents or anybody or any friends of mine felt that it was, say, not a right fit for me, normally I would just be disappointed if I didn't succeed at something I tried. But at this point, oh, and sorry, there was another thing I forgot. I did suffer an injury in October of 2020, and my parents, who wanted to assist me in the hospital, they couldn't assist me in A&E because of COVID at the time. So I was wheeled around in a wheelchair just by hospital staff. Yeah. And that was not fun. But because of what I was dealing with at the time, I mean, after the internship course, once the final nail in the coffin was put in on that, and once that was done in and was effectively ended through no control of my own, I mean, it broke me for months. I mean, it was it really hit me and broke me for many months, because at this point I'd now lost my late grandfather, and then I'd had a foot injury, which was very traumatizing, and I was dealing with certain relationship issues with certain family members of mine, but I won't say who it is for safety reasons. And now my internship course and now my internship course went down the drain, which led to, hear this, months of employment issues that came about because of that, because it was meant to turn into a job opportunity at the end, but then it just went down the drain due to COVID. you know, and the months of employment issues at the time, it broke me for months. And with the grief on top, as you could imagine, it had a severe emotional effect for many months. And after the internship course was ended, because of the other troubling circumstances that just piled on top of that, I actually, and because of how much it emotionally broke me, I became a recluse. I was increasingly reclusive for many months. I mean, I felt as though I was never going to properly breathe again. I felt like my life was just never going to normalize because of my troubling circumstances. It's like a boulder. When something like that happens, and you're dealing with all these things all at once, it's like a boulder has just hit you, and you've goodness knows how many injuries you've sustained as a result of it. Or say, for example, you take the claws of a cat, or a shell of a tortoise, or a turtle. I mean, you're so vulnerable. You feel like you're either of little use, little importance, and just nothing but a big target to be beaten and bullied when you've gone through something like that. You know, one troubling circumstance wouldn't break me for many months, but it would certainly subdue me, as it would with anybody. But 4 troubling issues all in 1 year, you can imagine just the emotional effect it can have, as you could understand. I really felt for a long time I was never going to fully breathe again for many months. And so as time went by, we got Daphne the cat in June. It wasn't the only thing that helped me heal. But however, despite the low point, I did, however, go to the Worthing bus rally, and that was at the end of the rally. That was when I met David. Before, if anyone, say, recommended something to me during that low point, I used to get I used to snap quite angrily, because I did get quite bitter because of what happened. I mean, I was quite bitter, and I was like, the bitterness in me, and that I was like, how could someone have this sort of that, and I lost it all, that sort of thing. It used to make me quite angry. And I wasn't meaning to get angry. I was just so upset with what had happened, that sort of thing. I mean, my mother would remember this very, very well. She could never forget this. So it was at the end of the Worthing bus rally of that year, and I met David. And it was when David talked to me. Before, nothing could win me over if they were to recommend something. But when I met David, something in me that was lost, or because of my circumstances, sort of revived in the inner core of my soul. And something began to win me over, because when I met David, he reminds me of my late grandfather. The only difference being was that David, he actually even looks relatively similar to my late grandfather, but just with a few differences. Not exactly the same, but slightly different. Because David, like my late grandfather, is a short man. He's 5'4.5". He's a short man, David is. And my late grandfather, Edmund, was short. The only difference was David's not skinny and petite like how Edmund, my late grandfather, was, because he was skinny and petite, where David is not. He's not overweight, but he was when I first met him. But he's since lost the weight now. He weighs a little more than I do, because my weight in American pounds is 153 pounds. David's around about 154 to 156 pounds, something like that, despite being shorter than I. The day I met David, something won me over, and we chatted, and I actually felt, what could be. And then he recommended Tinkers Park rally to me shortly after we met. And then, of course, I shared the experience and how I felt. And it was, Tinkers Park, and then it was the Tenterden. And then and I met David again shortly after that. And we met quite a few times after. And then he got me into another event. And all that. And since I met David in 2021, and all that he got me into, be it the other classic car shows, which didn't really properly come to fruition until 2022, once we were really quite out of the COVID phase at this point. since I met and when more increased steam rallies came, for example, like the Lawton, Tinkers Park, Parham Park, Hellingley, and all that. It was 2022. It was met with more healing, with more events and things, and it wasn't really because it took time to heal because of the four troubling circumstances. It took time to heal. I haven't really felt like my former happier self or pleasantly happier self, or how I felt, say, before my late grandfather passed away, really for the last just under 3 years. It was only really in 2023 that I felt comfortable with opening up about what the event attending and my friendship with David has meant to me personally. You know, it's only really been less than 3 years since I became comfortable to open up. It took time to heal. It took time, as you could imagine. Even my mother said, it takes time to heal. So I could understand why he didn't open up for a long time. I did, and David knows the story because I did open up the story. I mean, I could have opened up 2 years ago, but once I felt emotionally healed, I just wanted to focus on that year being a better year. Whereas before, if I'd spoken about my circumstances, I would have probably just been crying. Say 3, 4 years ago, I would have just been crying if I'd spoken about it, probably uncontrollably. But now, if I was to talk about it now, I wouldn't collapse emotionally or feel saddened. You know, I mean, it had to happen that I met David, you know. I mean, it had to happen because if I'd not met David or if I'd not taken up what David got me into, I would have far more than likely I needed therapy or counselling. Because also, worst of all, when I went through the reclusive moment, increasingly reclusive, I actually took up increased drinking with alcohol. So I nearly went through a period of, so I almost went through a period of long-term alcoholism because of my troubling circumstances. But after Tinkers Park rally, I quickly increased the excess consumption of alcohol like a click of a finger. You know, so luckily that never happened long term. So I thought I'd share what it's meant. You know, this is what it's meant to me ever since I met David and what he got me into, and and the effect it's had on me, helping me to heal from what was a very difficult, really sad and significantly tricky and emotionally trying time.
Yeah.
And one
Yeah.
thing I will say, after going through a low point, if there's anybody who is going through a critically low point, my message is go ahead, go. Take up what your friend recommends to you, or if you're to meet someone who could have significant importance that could really be of good use in your life and really help you significantly in your life to move on from the troubles, go ahead and go. Take the hand of a newfound friend or an old friend. There's no reason one should feel alone, especially in those circumstances. That's what I'd say. That's my philosophical sentiment to those who are going through critically low points, is take the hands of a new or an old friend and take their recommendation, independence of what they recommend. That's
Yeah.
what I'd
Yeah.
say.
Definitely. We got Dan Putnell Crofting. He says, what plans do you have for your channel in 2026?
2026, Deborah. Very good question. Continue with what I normally do and certainly carry on event attending, but I might reduce live stream content because shortly before we moved, because we moved in fairly recent times, I found a sheet of a paper where it showed because before classic car event attending and things, I was predominantly a rail and bus enthusiast, and I looked at a paper and it had plans, my rail enthusiast train spotting plans I had for 2020, but because of the loss of my grandfather and then COVID, it was largely out of the question to fulfill. So I read the paper and I'm like, I mean, and this time, why I had not done it, it was nothing to do with COVID, but I just simply forgot about it since I jumped on the bandwagon with event attending. I just forgot about the plans. So I looked at the paper. I'm like, why have I not achieved it after all this time? And I realized, oh yes, the event attending. I jumped on the bandwagon. So when I read it, I'm like, I'm going to eventually fulfill those plans. However, I'm not going to fulfill those plans on a weekend where there's an event where I'm generally due to be event attending on a certain date. So I read the paper, the plans, and during 2026 on a certain weekend of mine when there's not an event going on, I'm going to fulfill the belated 2020 plans. I can't remember every one of them because I lost the paper, unfortunately, but I can remember about 5 or 6 of the stations I could remember planning to go to. And I believe it will be achievable during 2026 or early 2027. So, yes, there may be reduced live stream content because I would like to catch up with my old hobby. I mean, even though I had the plan for 2025 to make things happen, it was predominantly revolved around increased event attending, which I've largely succeeded this year, and increased live stream content. But I really should have made it happen to catch up with my old hobby, but never mind. There's always the future to catch up with it.
Yeah,
but if it answers your question, Deborah, I thought I'd share. Hello to you.
Hello, Foxy. Please say hello to Foxy for me.
Thank you. I think anyone would say hello.
And Harriet said, Foxy, you could read poetry for a career. You're great at that. Maybe voiceover work for adverts too.
Wow, thank you, Harriet. Thank you.
Yeah. So, guys, we're going to start wrapping things up because we've just went past the hour mark, and I have to go and do some stuff. So, Foxy, thank you so much for coming on and doing this little interview. It's been a total pleasure. A total pleasure.
Well, Metal, my good friend, may I thank you most kindly, sincerely, for allowing me the opportunity to appear on your podcast panel. And thank you, everybody, for your support and your endorsement. And even the questions you had to ask me were very interesting and very good questions. And it was very interactive and a great experiential moment. So thank you, Metal. And thank you to my supporters, Pamela, my mod, Harriet, my mod, Deborah, Lisa, Aussie Queen, Jess, all of you in the chat. Thank you very much for your support and endorsement, and thank you, Metal, for having me on your podcast panel. Look forward to doing it again someday.
Yeah, definitely. It will be sometime in 2026. Probably around about, I don't know, like say March, April time, possibly.
If I can make it that time, I will certainly let you know.
Yeah, definitely. So, if you haven't checked out Foxy, I have put his channel down in the description, Foxy The Enthusiast. So if you like trains, planes, buses, stuff like that, anything transport, head on over to Foxy. He does some really good content over there. And he also does live streaming as well. So yeah.
I certainly do. Yeah. Thank you so much for having me, Metal. Thank you very, very much.
My pleasure. So, guys, until next time, we catch you all later.